So WrestleMania 8. What can I say? Well, let's start off with why the fuck do you have two main events? You know, boy. I just saw this WrestleMania not too long ago with a friend of mine, as I probably mentioned yesterday, and I'm very much wondering. Just because you have a top star doesn't mean that he gets the fucking bill in the main event just because he is who he is. You already had a WWF Championship match. You know what? I'll just get to that later. So WrestleMania 8 was at the it wasn't at the Pontiac Silverdome. It was at Hoosier Dome. I don't know. I got that confused. Anyways, we have a dark match. It's Bushwhackers versus the Beverly Brothers. And Beverly Brothers are new in the WWE. It actually, looking at this here, I'm reading these on Wikipedia. Whatever. It's not like I don't know what I'm talking about, but it's better just to refresh my memory, I guess. But I'm seeing here that Luke and Butch, they put their last names down, so Luke Williams and Butch Miller. In all the years I've been a fan of wrestling, I've never known that. But anyways, they took on the Beverly Brothers. The Beverly Brothers, as I said, is a new tag team in the WWF, and Bushwhackers won. But it was interesting just to see these two guys go and in their first match. I'm not quite sure what happened to them afterwards, but they were managed by the genius Lanny Poffo, although it doesn't say that here. Then we go on to WrestleMania 8 in Hoosier Dome. And it's Shawn Michaels versus Tito Santana. Now, months earlier, Shawn Michaels turned on Marty Jannetty and, no longer being the Rockers. And the first time I think anyone has seen blood at the time, in WWF. It was always the right way to do PG. And, Shawn Michaels in the barbershop of Brutus Beefcake and having him throw Marty Jannetty through the window. And, of course, having all the blood. And that caused the rumors to be true, and the Rockers broke up. So Shawn Michaels got himself Sensational Sherri and became, as being known now, the Heartbreak Kid. And so Shawn Michaels beat Tito Santana in one of the lamest moves I can think of besides the Sweet Chin Music. And it's funny, I'm glad that he stuck with Sweet Chin Music because the side suplex is pretty stupid for a finisher. But at the time, I'm pretty sure it was okay. Then we have The Undertaker versus Jake the Snake Roberts. Jake Roberts and The Undertaker, one of the two creepiest superstars in the business at the time. Undertaker in his second WrestleMania, very cool to see how those two worked off each other. We all know Jake Roberts had a drug issue and an alcohol issue. I'm not quite sure if he was under the influence for this match, but it was pretty cool to see. It was pretty cool to see that they worked well off each other, as I've said before, and these guys were very good. It was just one of the greatest feuds. I mean, they were tagged together before, and, Undertaker turned on him. I'm not quite sure who was face and who was heel at this point. I'm pretty sure it was Jake Roberts, but a good show nonetheless. Then you get Bret the Hitman Hart versus Roddy Piper. And what's cool about this is that Roddy Piper and Bret Hart are actually cousins in real life. Were. Roddy Piper passed away, and still can't believe that he's gone. But Roddy Piper was Intercontinental Champion, and they did the promo, and Bret Hart was serious, and Roddy Piper was trying to have a little fun. It eventually became serious. It just seemed like Bret Hart had a huge chip on his shoulder at that point. And so the match happened, and I think it was an elbow to the face, and Bret Hart bled. And knocked the referee down, and Roddy Piper went for the sleeper hold. And then Bret Hart went near the turnbuckle, and did the roll up. Now, Roddy Piper had the interview in his DVD saying that he really won the match because if he did the sleeper hold, the referee would have had to have checked to see if Bret Hart was asleep or not. What I think he failed to realize was, and I just noticed that when I was watching it recently, the referee was just getting up as Bret Hart rolled Roddy Piper over. And so I don't think there was a way for the ref to check to see if everything was the way it was. And so Bret Hart became second time Intercontinental Champion. Very cool. I was always a Bret Hart fan, and I didn't really know a lot about Roddy Piper until I saw him at WrestleMania 4, and then so on and so forth. And two, great Canadians going at it, and it's still a shame that, Bret Hart had his stroke, and although he's doing great, he can't wrestle very well anymore, and of course losing Roddy Piper, it's a shame. And now he's got great company, and Ivan Koloff and George Animal Steel. Then we get to the intake match. It's Big Boss Man Virgil, Sergeant Slaughter, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus the Nasty Boys, Repo Man and the Mountie with Jimmy Hart. So, we had Ray Combs of Family Feud come out and talk trash about the heel team for some reason. And I never got that. But anyway, so that was a good match, and the face team won. Very interesting. That was a cool match. I really enjoyed watching it. I miss those days. And, having later on watching and seeing the Repo Man and the British Bulldog feud. That was cool. And then we, get to Mean Gene Okerlund, who introduced the Legion of Doom. Legion of Doom, of course, were at WrestleMania 7. And then they came back and they started talking about the Nasty Boys and stuff like that. Or maybe it was Money Inc. Yeah, I think it was Money Inc. So they were talking about Jimmy Hart anyways. But yeah, so it was back and forth. Of course, they had their manager Paul Ellering, and it's very cool now because Paul is on NXT with the Authors of Pain. I always wanted to see how it would go between the Authors of Pain and the Legion of Doom, who would win that one. But it's great to see Paul still active, and so there was a pretty good promo there. Then we get to one of the two main events. The WWF Championship match. Ric Flair as the champion of Mr. Perfect taking on Macho Man Randy Savage. Now, the storyline goes, Ric Flair was kind of taunting Miss Elizabeth, and Macho Man would have none of it. They went feud back and forth. And so then a match came about. This was a really good match. I remember having the rematch on, I believe, Superstars, where it was the debut of Razor Ramon, and he helped Ric Flair regain the championship. I was pissed off about that at the time. But again, you look 10 years later at WrestleMania 18, which I'll get to eventually, and they sort of do this. Well, they do the same thing, except in reverse. Now, in this case, this match to me was a little bit more important. You have the WWE champion, and yes, I get it. Hulk Hogan is the man. He is the guy that when you say WWF or professional wrestling, you automatically think Hulk Hogan. But holy shit, Hulk Hogan was on his way out. And he was facing Psycho Sid Justice. You fucking idiots had to have that match in the main event. But this match was cool. I really think that the Macho Man was the main reason why I got into professional wrestling. Watching him and seeing him act all crazy and look cool, it made me a fan for life. But this match, having these guys have a legendary feud and continue on to WCW, it was probably one of the, highlights of the show. But then we get to Tatanka versus Model Rick Martel. These guys had a really good feud that year, in the not SummerSlam, but Survivor Series. And they did a show. I'm not sure what it was called, but they did a show that I remember. And unless I saw it in a magazine of one of my brothers, but this was a good match. Of course, the Native Americans were out there, the tribe, and they were doing their chant and they were dancing, and it was cool to see that, and what a good match this was. I think that they were both very good performers. I don't know where Rick Martel is. Tatanka is a member of his tribe. I can't remember what tribe it is. But yeah, he did do so. He did come back in 2003, which I thought was very cool. He made an appearance at the Royal Rumble a couple of years ago as well. And if they came back for maybe an appearance, why not? I think that would be awesome. But yeah, those guys really had a good match. Then we get the Tag Team Championship match. The Natural Disasters, Earthquake and Typhoon. Their first WrestleMania together. I've said I think that Earthquake was underrated. Or maybe he was underrated, I don't know. I think he was one of my favorite wrestlers in the 90s, early 90s. But they took on Money Inc. in a WWF Championship match for the tag team belts. Yeah, I said it. And it was cool. Unfortunately, this was not their night. They did eventually get a tag team championship from Money Inc. But unfortunately, it wasn't this night. And yes, I hate countouts. I told you that already. This could have been a good match had that not happened, but unfortunately it did. But they would eventually get the tag belts. Good match, and they had a good feud that year. Then we got The Rock and Owen Hart, who took on Skinner. Well, Skinner was one of those guys that was like what Leo Kruger was in TNA, or TNA's Leo Kruger was like Skinner. He was very much that guy who was creepy, who had the attitude of an alligator handler or whatever, you know. Very interesting individual. And then you had Owen Hart, who was in high energy with Coco Beware. I didn't recognize the theme music, but, you know, the youngest of the Hart family, and, you know, just, losing him way too young. He, you know, I will never understand why that had happened the way that it did. I will never understand why they would make him do that. I just think it was a waste, and I think that him never being in the Hall of Fame because of his wife and the WWE and their relationship, it's just a huge fucking shame. And Owen Hart won the same way he actually beat Bret Hart at WrestleMania 10. Oh boy, will that be interesting. Then we got to the main event. We have Hulk Hogan versus Sid Justice, or Psycho Sid, or WCW fans will call him Sid Vicious. You know, Hulk Hogan, as I said earlier, the reason, you know, why people cheered him was because he was the American hero. And when you, even if you weren't a wrestling fan, you say wrestling, you say professional wrestling, Hulk Hogan is what you would picture. Now, just because he's the American hero doesn't mean he should be in the fucking main event. Because it wasn't for the title. Hulk Hogan was leaving to do a movie. To be a movie star. Why he got the main event, I don't know. I look at Ric Flair and Macho Man Randy Savage, and I think they should have been on first. They should have been, not on first, they should have been on top. They should have been the last match, but no, it had to be Hulk Hogan and Sid Justice. Granted, it wasn't a bad match. Well, actually, I take that back. It was. You had interference by Papa Shango. I don't know if Papa Shango debuted at that WrestleMania. I gotta find his debut match now. But Papa Shango came out. And then him and Sid Justice kicked the crap out of Hulk Hogan. I probably would have too. And then you hear the familiar music. Here comes the return of the Ultimate Warrior. Now, this is the Ultimate Warrior that left, was fired. He was at SummerSlam 91. And he was fired. Because of holding McMahon up for money. Or he wouldn't go out in the ring. So he got fired and he came back. Got a second chance. Now, he kind of looked different. He was smaller. He had his hair cut. But if I were to compliment this match, it was seeing Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior, the two people that face each other at WrestleMania 6. To see those two at WrestleMania 8 posing together in the ring. That's the only compliment I will give this match. Other than that, it was a piece of shit. And I don't care what anyone says. 10 years later... 10 years later, you had The Rock versus Hogan. That was main event worthy. But vice versa. I'll get to that one when I get to it. Overall, WrestleMania 8, I enjoy. It was a good show. I think it was. I think it was a great venue. I think it was a good show, despite what I said about the main event. I think it was a good show. I got into wrestling shortly after WrestleMania 8, so next year I'll get to WrestleMania 9. I'm pretty sure I did a review of that a couple years ago, so when I do the review tomorrow, I will be sure to probably post whatever post it in the thing, I guess. I can't remember what comments. Yeah. Okay, well anyways, talk to you tomorrow. Bye.